Good day, everyone. We are Group 2, and our topic is entitled Value and the Quest for the Good. But first, let us define what is value. The term value comes from the Latin word valere, meaning to be worth. Sometimes it is used as a synonym for good and valuable. Value is the degree of something's usefulness or benefit. This implies that when we say something has value, we usually imply that it fulfills a need or want, offers a benefit, or solves a problem for us. An example of it is the convenience machines or cars we use. What is its value to us? We benefit a lot from cars. They solve our problems and satisfy our demands in a way that allow us to reach our destinations, especially those that are far away and impossible to walk quickly. In ethics, the terms value and good is used interchangeably, meaning the terms value and good have the same meaning because they both refer to the things that are desirable and beneficial. First, in the sense that what is valuable is good. For example, virtues like honesty and kindness are valued because they promote trust and harmony, which are seen as good outcomes. Second, what is good is always valuable. For example, justice is good and it holds a great value in maintaining fairness in society. What sort of things are valuable? Most of us, when we ask what are the things we value, would answer material things like bags, gadgets, clothes, and many more. But the most important of all is human life, because human life forms the foundation upon which we experience anything else. Without life, none of the other pleasures or achievements matter. The value of life surpasses everything else because it is the starting point of all experiences. As one Stoic philosopher said, mere living is not good, but living well is good. This means that simply living is not automatically valuable. What's more important is how you live or how you spend your life, whether it has a meaning and fulfillment, whether it is free from extreme suffering. Now let's move on to Nicholas Rescher's classification of values. First one is called material and physical value. These are the things or this includes things that affect our body and daily life like health, comfort, and physical safety. These are important because it helps us to live well and stay safe. For example, eating nutritious foods and exercising regularly are ways to maintain good health. Second is the economic value. This relates to money and work like having economic security or enough money to live comfortably and being productive contributing to work or society in a useful way. For example, saving enough money for the future and working diligently. Third is the moral value. This includes traits that make us good people like honesty, fairness, and kindness. For example, telling the truth, treating all people equally regardless of their race or social status, and helping those in need, such as giving foods and clothes to the poor.
Social value, generosity, politeness, and graciousness. These values guides how people interact with others, emphasizing kindness and respect in social setting. Example of generosity is donating time or resources to community or charity. Politeness is saying please, thank you in everyday interaction, while example of graciousness is accepting compliments or criticism with humility and appreciation. Political value, freedom, and justice. These values shape the principle and practices within governance and society, advocating for individual rights and fairness. Example of freedom, advocating for the right to free speech, allowing individuals to express their opinions without fear. Example of justice, supporting equal treatment under the law for all citizens regardless of their background. Aesthetic value, beauty, symmetry, and grace. These values focus on appreciation of art, nature, and design, often highlighting what is visually appealing and harmonious. Example of beauty is appreciating a stunning sunset or a well-crafted painting. An example of symmetry is designing a building where both sides mirror each other for visual balance. While example of grace is watching a ballet performance where the movements flow smoothly and elegantly. Religious value, piety, obedience, and faith. These values pertain to beliefs and practices related to spirituality, emphasizing devotion and adherence to religious teaching. Example of piety, regularly attending religious services and engaging in prayer or meditation. Example of obedience is following the ethical guidelines set by a religious tradition, while example of faith is trusting in a higher power of divine plan even in difficult times. Intellectual value, intelligence, clarity, and knowledge. These values pertain to the pursuit of understanding and wisdom, emphasizing the importance of critical thinking and learning. Example of intelligence is solving complex problems using logical reasoning. Example of clarity is communicating ideas in a straightforward manner that others can easily understand. While example of knowledge is studying history to understand past events and their impact on the present. Together, these values contribute to a well-rounded and meaningful life, encouraging personal growth and collective progress.
So for the next topic, we have the intrinsic and instrumental value. But first, we have the intrinsic good and instrumental good. So intrinsic good are good because of their nature and not derived from other goods. It is something worthwhile not because it leads to something else but for its own sake alone. It is good in itself. So, you can find out what intrinsic good is for you by asking a series of why questions until a nonsense answer reach. So, for example, a hiker is sketching a yellow flower into the mountains. Then, we ask him why. Then, he will answer, of course, and then we ask him again why until it leads to the answer that because sketching into the mountains makes him happy. So when we ask him again why it makes him happy, it becomes a nonsense. So happiness is his intrinsic good. Instrumental goods are worthy of desire because they effective means of attaining our intrinsic goods. It is something considered as a means to some other goods. So for example, money is an instrumental goods because it can lead to pleasure. So another example is education is our instrumental goods because many people believe in this sequence: educations, then wealth, then success, and then happiness, which is the intrinsic goods. Education is our instrumental goods, then it leads to our intrinsic good, which is the happiness. So intrinsic goods are ends in themselves, while instrumental goods are tools to achieve those ends. The question, what things are good or valuable, is ambitious because it can be interpreted in multiple ways, leading to different answers depending on the context. In this, if we want to find out if things are good or valuable, first we need to separate the kinds of value or goods they are. So in the above, Socrates distinguishes three kinds of goods. So first is purely intrinsic goods. So the example is joy or happiness. Second is purely instrumental goods. Sample is medicine and making money. And the last is combination good, which is knowledge, sight, and health. These three is a good in themselves and good as a means to further goods. So we consider something goods or worthy of desire in themselves and other things good or desirable only because of their consequences. An instrumental good from good instrument. If something is an instrumental good, it means to attaining something that it is intrinsically good. But to be a good instrument is to be an effective means to any goal, even if it's good or bad. Example, poison is a good instrument for murdering someone, but murder is not intrinsically good thing. Also, poison in disuse is not an instrumental good. So, if the instrumental good is not a good thing, it means we cannot attain an intrinsic good.
Intrinsic value refers to the inherent worth of an entity, meaning it is valued for what it is rather than for what it can provide. This type of value is often seen in ethical, philosophical, and environmental discussions. For example, in nature, many argue that ecosystems and wildlife have intrinsic value as they contribute to the planet's health and beauty, regardless of their economic benefits. Next is human life. Most cultures view human life as having intrinsic worth, advocating that every individual deserves respect and dignity simply for being a woman. And lastly, art. Works of art are often appreciated for their creativity, emotional impact, and cultural significance, not just for their monetary value. Some philosophers like Immanuel Kant argue that human beings should be treated as ends in themselves, highlighting the intrinsic value of individuals. Next is the instrumental value. Instrumental value is about the usefulness of something as a means to achieve an end. It is valued for its capacity to bring about certain results or benefits. One examples of instrumental value is money. Money is a classic example of instrumental value. It doesn't hold inherent value, but it is valuable because it allows us to purchase goods and services. Next examples is tools. A hammer has instrumental value because it helps in building or repairing things, making tasks easier and more efficient. Last example is education. Education can be seen as having instrumental value as it equips individual with knowledge and skills that enhance career opportunities and quality of life. Utilitarianism often focuses on instrumental value, measuring actions by their outcomes and emphasizing the greatest good for the greatest number. And now let us proceed with the comparison of intrinsic value and instrumental value. Intrinsic value is about being, while instrumental value is about doing. Intrinsic value is often discussed in ethical and moral contexts, while instrumental value is commonly associated with practical and economic discussions. And lastly, based on their relationships, something can have both intrinsic and instrumental value. For example, a forest may have an intrinsic value for its beauty and role in the ecosystem, while also having instrumental value for providing timber and recreation. And by understanding the distinction between intrinsic and instrumental value, it helps us to navigate ethical decisions, environmental policies, and our appreciation of art and life. It encourages a deeper reflection on what we value and why influencing both personal choices and societal norms.
So let's proceed to the value of leisure. Introduction of leisure. What is leisure? Philosophical divide, hedonist versus non-hedonist. The philosophical value of leisure, it outlines the two main camps in philosophy regarding pleasure. Hedonists who argue that pleasure is the highest good, and non-hedonists who may hold different views on what constitutes value and goodness. Halimbawa nito sa ating pang-araw-araw ay nag-aaral tayo upang makapasa sa ating pagsusulit dahil naniniwala tayong magkakaroon tayo ng kasiyahan kapag ang nagkakaroon tayo ng mataas na marka. Then, kapag napapasali tayo sa Dean's Lister, College Scholar, or University Scholar. Then, next is, what is hedonism? Hedonism asserts that pleasure is intrinsically good or pain as the only intrinsic evil. It delves into the definition of hedonism, emphasizing that it regards pleasure as the ultimate good. It also notes that pain is typically viewed as the only thing that is bad in itself, setting the stage for understanding how pleasure is prioritized in the philosophical framework. Ang halimbawa dito ay pagpili ng kasiyahan. Halimbawa, isang tao ang pipiling kumain ng paborito niyang pagkain, kahit na ito ay hindi masustansya, dahil sa paniniwalang mas mahalaga ang kasiyahan kaysa sa posibleng epekto nito sa kalusugan. May dalawang subcategories of hedonism. Una ay sensualism. Sensualism merong pleasure equated with sensual enjoyment, focus on physical sensation. Ang pangalawa ay satisfactionism. Meron din itong dalawang uri. Pleasure derived from mental satisfaction of fulfillment and not necessarily linked to sensual experiences. It breaks down hedonism into its two main branches, sensualism and satisfactionism. It highlights sensualism focused on physical pleasure. It contrasts satisfactionism emphasizes mental fulfillment, showcasing the diversity within hedonistic thought. Halimbawa, sa pagsasaya sa mga sensual na karangyaan, ang isang tao ay masayang umiinom ng alak at sumasayaw sa isang kasiyahan. Nakatuon ito sa mga pisikal na sensasyon ng saya. Sa satisfactionism, ang katuwang sa pagtapos ng proyekto, isang estudyante ang nakaramdam ng kasiyahan sa pagkatapos makamit ang isang mahirap na proyekto kahit na hindi ito nagdulot ng pisikal na kasiyahan. Next is hedonism in literature. Brave New World Mustafa Mond as hedonistic figure. Society devoid of deceit and crime through genetic engineering and drugs, or kung tinatawag ay soma. And conflict. The savage critiques the lack of deeper values. It connects the philosophical discussion to literature using Aldous Huxley's Brave New World as a case study. It presents Mustafa's Mond as representation of a hedonistic utopia where pleasure is maximized. The conflict with the savage illustrates the critique of such as society, raising questions about the value of deeper experiences and emotions beyond mere pleasure. So, ang halimbawa dito sa Mustafa Mond sa Brave New World, si Mustafa Mond ay nagpapahayag na ang kasiyahan mula sa soma or tinatawag na droga ay mas mahalaga kaysa sa tunay na karanasan ng pag-ibig o sakit. Sa Savage naman ay kumakatawan sa mga tao na nagtataguyod ng mga tradisyonal na halaga. Naniniwala na ang tunay na kasiyahan ay nagmumula sa mga mas malalim na karanasan tulad ng pag-ibig at pagdurusa.
Ano nga po ba ang hedonist? Ang hedonist ay isang individual na naniniwala na ang paghahanap ng kasiyahan o pleasure ay isa sa mga pinakamahalagang aspeto ng buhay. Sa madaling salita, sila'y laging naghahangad ng mga bagay na nagbibigay ng kaligayahan at kasiyahan. Parang pagiging pleasure-seeking, for example, drugs or sex just to pleasure themselves. Hedonistic theories focus on the role of pleasure and pain in ethics, values, and actions. In short, hedonism asks what the role of pleasure and pain are in our actions and our motivations. At ngayon naman po, tayo ay dumako sa non-hedonist. Ano nga po ba ito? So, ang non-hedonists argue that pleasure is not the ultimate value or the highest good in life.
So they believe other values or principles are more important. Non-hedonist is an individuals who believe na ang kasiyahan ay mahalaga, ngunit hindi ito ang pinakamahalagang bagay sa buhay. Sa halip, naniniwala po sila na may mas mahalagang prinsipyo tulad po ng tungkulin, kabutihan o mas mataas na moral na kabutihan na dapat po ay mangibabaw. Sa madaling salita, hindi po layunin ng non-hedonist ang kasiyahan. Ito ay bahagi lamang po ng mas malaking larawan ng mga tunay na mahalagang bagay sa buhay. There are two categories of non-hedonist. The first one is monist and the second one is pluralist. Atin pong alamin muna kung ano nga ba ang monist. So, monist. They believe that there is a single intrinsic value, but it is not pleasure. Perhaps it is a transcendent value, the good. Ang mga monist ay naniniwala na may isang pangunahing halaga na nagpapailalim sa lahat ng iba pang mga halaga. Ngunit ito ay hindi kaligayahan. Maaaring ito ay isang mas mataas na halaga, ang tinatawag nilang ang mabuti, na hindi natin lubos na nauunawaan, ngunit siyang batayan ng lahat ng iba pa nating mga halaga. Sa madaling salita po, ito ang nag-iisang prinsipyo na nagdidikta at gumagabay sa lahat ng ating moral at ethical na desisyon. The second one category is pluralist. Admit that pleasure or enjoyment is an intrinsic good, but they add that there are other intrinsic goods as well, such as friendships, freedom, and love. Ang mga pluralista ay sumasang-ayon na ang kaligayahan o kasiyahan po ay isang mahalagang kabutihan, pero idinaragdag nila na mayroon pang ibang mahahalagang kabutihan, tulad po ng pagkakaibigan, kalayaan, at pag-ibig. Ibig sabihin, hindi lang kasiyahan ang tinitignan nila bilang mahalaga, kundi pati na rin ang iba pang mga aspeto ng buhay na nagbibigay ng kahulugan at halaga.